Today we are going to discuss computer graphics, basically vector and raster graphics, what's the difference between them, where they are used, and so on. So 2D computer graphics is used mainly in programs that were developed on the basis of traditional printing and drawing technologies. Areas of 2D graphics application: book printing, cartography, well, making maps, of course, photography, drawings, advertising, web design. Maybe you can mention any other areas. Okay, let's move on. So the main purpose of 2D graphics is to display a flat two-dimensional image. What does 2D stand for? It means two dimensions. So it's width and height, x and y coordinates on the screen. The flat 2D image is easily displayed on the flat display surface. The displays of modern computers and other devices are made of pixels. These are small crystals that consist of three lights of different colors. And those three lights are always the same: red, green, and blue. So here you can see a zoomed in picture of different screens, monitors like TV CRT. These are all television sets, and as well as PC CRT and modern LCD screens. And as you can see, they all consist of pixels, and every pixel has three lights: red, green, and blue. So short is RGB. When all three lights are on at maximum brightness, 100%, the human eye sees white color. And when all three lights are off, 0% brightness, the pixel appears black. So just like in your room, if you turn on the light, you can see the light, and when the light is off, 0% brightness, so your room is black, dark. So screen resolution is the number of horizontal pixels multiplied by number of vertical pixels. Older displays had a lower resolution, for example, 320 by 240, which in total is 76,800 pixels, and the image was fuzzy and grainy. If you remember old video games like Mario and old monitors or TV sets and old computers, of course. Modern displays have a 4K resolution, which is usually 3,840 by 2,160. In general, it's in total 8.3 million pixels. Can you imagine? Just one screen. And even more. There are even 8K displays. So here's like a typical 4K monitor. They can be curved, they can be flat, different form factors. And there are also other popular resolutions like HD, high definition, 720p, which is 1280 by 720. Probably nowadays you cannot call it really high definition, but like 15 years ago or maybe 13 years ago, it was great. Then 5 years later, like HD was introduced somewhere in the middle of 2000s. Then 7 years later, they introduced Full HD, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels. They usually call it 1080p. So if you watch YouTube videos, you can select the quality of the video, and usually there are these options available. Well, if the video contains a 4K quality, of course you can choose 4K, but not many videos have that kind of quality on YouTube. I think I have seen even 8K videos on YouTube, but I just don't remember. It was some short video nature, just like a demonstration for televisions which are sold at the supermarkets. So let's go back to 2D graphics. It can be divided into two major categories. It's raster graphics and vector graphics. So in raster graphics, an image is stored as a set of pixels and their colors: JPG, GIF, GIF, or PNG, other also formats. So if you look at this picture, well, a small one, you can see clearly that it's a smiley face. But if you zoom in, you can clearly see that the image consists of squares of different colors. So this is how raster graphics is stored in the computer and other digital devices. So it's just a color of every pixel. And how to store the color of the pixel, we already know that each pixel is three lights, a combination of three lights and their brightness. So by adjusting brightness of each light, we can achieve that or another color. So this is how it's stored in the files. And so you can see the white color is it's almost white, it's RGB, and all three lights are 93% brightness. Then we have gray color, and then we have a yellow color. And as you can see, yellow color is red and green 90% and blue 0%. And our eye, the human eye, can perceive different colors depending on the brightness of these three lights. Usually the pixels are so small that they merge on the screen, and the image appears to be solid. However, when you zoom in, you can clearly see its granular structure. So if you have a cool photo, but you cannot zoom it in infinitely, so eventually you will see pixelization. Unlike some sci-fi movies where you just see some satellite photos and you can zoom in and see a human's face, it's almost impossible because the resolution is still limited. So popular software for processing raster images. The first one, you all know it, it's Microsoft Paint. You may like it, you may not like it, you may hate it, but still you know it. So everyone knows it. Probably there is almost no child in the world who has never used it, even at school or at home for fun. You can create some simple graphics here, some funny cartoonish graphic. Usually you cannot do some serious stuff in here, just for simple cases. What's the downside of Microsoft Paint? Well, it's proprietary license and it's not cross-platform. So if you're using Linux or Mac OS, you don't have it. There are other softwares for Linux and Mac OS, but it's not this one. The other one is probably the most famous in the world, the most popular. It's Adobe Photoshop. Unlike Paint, you can use it for some serious stuff at work, processing photographs. If you're a professional photographer, if you you have a blog, or you shoot some weddings and other, or just nature or people, and if you're making photos for a magazine, so of course probably your first choice will be Adobe Photoshop. It's been around for more than 20 years, and or even 30. And of course, since then, a lot has changed in there. Many functions have been added, and now this is a real giant. So pretty much everything you can think of, you can do in Photoshop with your images. You can even try and insert 3D models, rotate them, and save them as a 2D image. So many possibilities with Photoshop. What's the disadvantage? Of course, it's you have to pay for Photoshop. It's licensed, and well, you cannot use it on Linux. The other one, probably not so famous, but also worth mentioning, is Corel Paint Shop Pro. Well, Corel is another software giant who produces software for graphics, design, and so on. It's like a competitor of Adobe. So pretty much like Photoshop. Of course, it's also commercial for using, and it's not cross-platform, but still it's a really nice one to look at if you're into image processing You should definitely give it a try. Now, of course, there are open source projects for using REST for editing raster graphics. One of the most famous is GIMP, GIMP, which is short for GNU Image Manipulation Program. It's cross-platform. It's open source. You can use it for free for any purposes. And you can see it has a basic set of tools that can get you started and quickly do what you need. If you're used to working with Photoshop, probably you will have some difficulties at first because the interface may be a little bit different hotkeys, different tools, but still they're similar to Photoshop. Of course, GIMP does not have such variety of tools as Photoshop because GIMP is a relatively new project and it's not commercial, so only people who are devoted to the project develop it. So it's not, but if you need something, you can always create your own plugin for GIMP and use it and share it with others. And of course, GIMP is very lightweight. Unlike Photoshop, it does not take gigabytes of your hard drive disk space. It just takes probably several hundreds of megabytes. Another one, and which is a really cool software, is Krita. It's also open source. It's cross-platform, written in C++ in Qt, and it probably looks even more like Photoshop, resembles it in interface. And if you're a Photoshop fan, you should definitely give this Krita a try. It's easy to use, lovely interface. You can switch themes, dark theme, light theme, those tabs, layers, channels. So many features. And of course, it's also lightweight, just like GIMP. In vector graphics, an image is stored as a set of geometric shapes defined by the formulas. And the most common format of vector graphics is SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. For example, you can draw a circle. And how do you specify a circle? Just by center and its radius. You can draw a line segment, or just a line. You just need to specify start and end points using your mouse. Just click, and that's it. And only numbers are stored in the file. So the coordinates of start and end points. And of course, since it's 2D graphics, each point is just two floating point numbers, or maybe even real integer numbers, x and y. So line segment is just four numbers, two numbers for the start point and two numbers for the end point. Polygon. In order to specify a polygon, you just need to specify coordinates of each point, of each vertex. So no matter how big is your polygon is, still you just number all coordinates and that's it. And the file is very small. So of course, there is popular software for processing vector images. We have already discussed raster graphics software. Now let's move on to vector graphics software. Probably the most famous one is CorelDRAW. So this the Corel company is very famous for this software. This product has been on market since 1990s. And of course, since then, it has developed a very big set of tools, instruments, and so on. Very powerful software, but unfortunately, it's commercial, so you have to pay for it. Another one, probably less famous, but also its competitor is Adobe Illustrator. So as you can see, in raster graphics, probably Adobe is a leader because of its Photoshop. But in vector graphics, likely that Corel is a leader because of its CorelDRAW. But also you can check out Adobe Illustrator. It's also a good one. And of course, there are always open source alternatives. So for vector graphics, it's Inkscape. Pretty simple, but still powerful tool. it can get you where you need. So it gets the job done. So no problem. You have the standard set of tools. You can always watch some video on YouTube tutorials, and it's easy to use. It's of course open source, cross-platform, and lightweight. So now let's take a look at this example. If you want to draw the flag of Japan, for example, how do you do it using vector graphics or raster graphics? Raster graphics. You just have to set the color of each pixel, even if most of them are the same. Well, as you can see, we have only white pixels and red pixels. Uh, if you look at the top part of the flag, so there are many rows, I think dozens of rows of white pixels. So you just need to specify them all. And then specify red pixels where they are. If we can use compression, of course, methods. If you use JPG compression or PNG or others, all these file formats, they can compress your images. And sometimes you can also set the level of compression, the quality. So the higher the compression is, the lower the quality is, and the opposite way. So if you want to compress this data, how do you do it? You don't need to write white pixel, white pixel, white pixel like 1,000 times. You can just set this, specify that white pixel repeats 1,000 times, and that's it. And if you use a higher level of compression, and your image has slightly similar colors, like different but slightly similar, they will be compressed and recognized as one color. So of course, if you set a higher level of compression, the quality will get worse. And if you use vector graphics, it's very simple. The file format, so you need to only just specify that you have a white background, maybe its size. So it's just width and height, 2 numbers, and the color. And the color, usually it's 24 bits. It's usually 8 bits for each color, red, green, and blue. So the white color and a circle in the middle. And we already know that in order to specify a circle, you just need to set the center and the radius. Center is just two numbers, x and y. And the radius is 1 number. And you can change the size of this flag any way you want. You can make it bigger, smaller, but still the file size does not change because you just place a different number and that's it. But the amount of data in the file is the same. So what happens when you zoom in on an image? Raster graphics, you have pixelization. We have already seen this because you cannot have more pixels than the file contains. But in vector graphics, the computer redraws the image every time, so it remains smooth and clear, no matter how you zoom in or out on the image. So take a look at this picture, this comparison. You can see that vector graphics remains smooth and clear, and raster graphics, of course, the quality is poor if you zoom it in. And also you can see different file formats for vector and raster graphics. I think you know most of them, probably not vector graphics. By the way, it says PDF is vector graphics. Probably this is not completely true. We will discuss the PDF format separately a little bit later. So let's speak about raster graphics. It has some advantages. What are the advantages? The first one is easy digitization of images, photos using scanners and digital cameras. So if you want to capture the picture, some scene or nature or a person or anything, you want to capture it on your computer, your device, you just can use your digital camera, your smartphone, or if you have you want to make a Xerox copy of some paper, some magazine, you can use your scanner, and it will make a raster version of your image inside your computer. The second one is photorealism. Of course, if you have a very beautiful nature and the sky, and it has many variations of colors, gradients, so you cannot do it with vector graphics. You can just store the color of each pixel separately, which gives you more photorealism. You can get different effects such as fog, blur, and so on. So if you use Instagram and post pictures, you can see there are filters. So it's the same. You can use it in Photoshop as well. And colors can be fine-tuned. Also, if you use Photoshop or other tools, so you can make the picture more saturated or black and white or more bright, something like that. So you just open a window and you use your mouse and fine-tune it the way you want until you reach the desired result. So as we already discussed, in image digitization, well, you can use your scanner, your camera, your smartphone, and whatever gadget you have nowadays. So these all gadgets, they have matrices. Each gadget has a matrix which percepts light of different color. And this matrix, of course, stores your image as a set of colors, pixels. It creates a file which consists of colors of pixels, raster graphics. But now let's take a look at disadvantages of raster graphics. Of course, it has some disadvantages. The first one, it's difficult to move a single object relative to the background. So imagine a situation, you have a nice picture of yourself somewhere, traveling maybe, but there is a person in the background, and that person spoils the image, ruins. You want to get rid of the person in the background, or another object, a car probably. And how do you do it in Photoshop? Well, you need to carefully select the person, which is, and the shape is really, it may be curvy. And if it's a person with long and curly hair, it's really not easy to select the hair, especially, I don't know if you have ever tried it. And if you select, you need to remove, then the removed area becomes black or white, and you need to fill the area so that it, but the problem is, how do you know what's behind the person? You can only guess. Or you use different tools such as healing and other in Photoshop, so you can fill that area of the removed object. The second one is, of course, the larger the image is, the more pixels, and accordingly, the larger the file size is. Well, it's clear. And quality is lost when zooming in, pixelation. So as you can see here, what if this is a camera on your car, or probably a surveillance camera somewhere or on the street? And if the camera has a small resolution, and if you have a distant object, probably a person, and you need to take a closer look at his face, so of course, if you have a poor camera, you will get nothing, because if you zoom it in, you just get a pixelization. So the conclusion is, in order to have really clear pictures while zooming in, you need to have a good camera. And now moving on to vector graphics. What are the advantages? Well, first of all, it's small files, since it is not the image itself that is saved, but only its structural data, which the program uses to restore the image. The second one is image enlargement almost does not affect the file size. We have already seen this as with flag of Japan. You can make the flag bigger, 10 times bigger, but the file size does not change. You just change the number, the width and height of the flag, and that's it, and the coordinates of the circle. So the number itself changes, but the file size does not change, almost. And finally, it's easy to edit individual image elements. So if you have a vector graphics file, you have a collection of different shapes in there. And if you want to move one shape left or right without touching the other ones. It's very easy to do. You just click on it, you use your mouse to move it back left or right and wherever you need. And the other elements will remain unchanged, so it's very easy to do. It's like you can imagine if you have a table and you have a set of different shapes we cut from cardboard, and if you want to move your shape left or right, you can do it very easily without touching the other ones. But in Photoshop, you can also easily move an object relative to the background. Yes, in Photoshop, you can create multiple layers of images that are layered on top of each other. Then you can actually move the top layer separately and fix the bottom layer. If you use Photoshop, you know that there are layers, and you can move layers independently from another. But this is only an intermediate temporary format PSD. It's not a ready image. It's not a final image that you can save and share with other people, especially online. So you cannot upload your PSD file to social networks. They will not read it. You need a final image like PNG, JPEG. So when you save an image in Photoshop as JPG, PNG, or GIF, all the layers are glued together. They are stick together, and you cannot edit them separately when you have a final image. So in raster graphics, you cannot, if it's a final image, you cannot move separate elements very easily. So why is raster graphics used if vector graphics is so convenient? That's a good question. Because vector graphics has disadvantages. And what are they? Well, the first one is absence of photorealism. Uh, Imagine or just consider vector graphics is when you take your pen or pencil and whatever you can draw with it. So even if you're a very skillful artist, it's not so easy to make a portrait of a person using just a pencil or different pencils. You can try, but still it will be seen that the image was hand drawn. It's not a picture from a camera. Or even you can try to draw a sky, especially in the morning or when the sunset. You can try to draw it using your pens and pencils, but still it's not going to be the same as as a picture. The second one is hard to digitize images. Well, if you see beautiful nature, you have a camera, but it makes only a raster picture. You cannot make a vector picture with some gadgets. So far, I have seen online services that can try to digitize, to vectorize your raster image. So it can recognize the image, recognize elements, shapes, and will try to recreate them. But the result may be not so photorealistic still. So you can try to make digital copies of something using vector graphics, but it's not so easy. And hard to apply artistic effects. So if you have a vector drawing, how can you apply filters to it, like blur or something else? So it's not so easy. So we already know where 2D graphics are used in general. But now let's discuss it separately. Where is raster graphics used specifically? We already discussed photography, because it gives us photorealistic quality. Pictures of nature. So again, can you draw this with your pencils? So just with your mouse using shapes in vector graphics? No, it's not so easy. The result will not be the same, definitely. But the raster graphics is excellent for this. Video games. And yes, there are some old video games that have very poor graphics, but still graphics is stored as raster images because they are shown on the screen, and screen is pixels, and you need a color of each pixel. So that's why you need raster graphics for this. And also another one, it's also still raster graphics. Why? Because you see that some elements have pixelization, like the numbers in the top left corner or the circle in the top right corner. And the Mario himself, he also has some pixelization. But what about vector graphics? Where is it used? Blueprints. It's where if you need a very precise and specific drawing of something, some engineering sizes, architectural or machine building blueprints. So vector graphics is perfect for this. You can easily adjust it, change some size, shape, and so on. Charts. Well, these are just simple shapes. So if you have rectangles, circles, points, lines, it's very good for it's a very good fit. And of course, fonts. If you noticed, probably, if you are using a word processor like Microsoft Word or LibreOffice Writer, and you try to increase the font size, you can see that the quality of characters is still the same. It's smooth and clear. Why is it so? Because fonts, they are stored as vector graphics. Of course, like maybe in the 1980s, there were some raster graphic fonts at that time, but people thought that it's better to use vector graphics for font because you can increase the size, make it bigger. So large font is equally smooth and the quality does not get worse. And finally, thank you for your attention.